Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legions of Christ and a theology professor. This is a podcast on the StarQuest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today, we're on day 176. We're covering Gravissimum Educationes 4-5 on schools are important and need help. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican and frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday, we spoke about parents being the primary educator of their children, but society and the church also have a role. Today, we are going to cover two titles, so I'll put the titles with the text of the paragraphs. The summary is that we have kind of three subparagraphs, which are like, we need to apply all the means, schools are important, and also the vocation of teachers and other educators are important. So, going straight into paragraph 4, the title for this paragraph is Various Aids to Christian Education, and the summary is the Church eagerly applies all means to help people learn the faith. So let's read it. In fulfilling its educational role, the Church, eager to employ all suitable aids, is concerned especially about those which are her very own. Foremost among these is catechetical instruction, which enlightens and strengthens the faith, nourishes life, according to the Spirit of Christ, leads to intelligent and active participation in the liturgical mystery. The Church esteems highly and seeks to penetrate and ennoble with her own spirit also other aids, which belong to the general heritage of man, and which are of great influence in forming souls and molding men, such as media of communication, various groups for mental and physical development, youth associations, and in particular, schools. So this is the point that using aids is a good thing. It's not that we just say, hey, here's the information, like go and find it, go and work on your own. No, we provide aids to help people learn. And we have to do it in charitable, nice ways. When I was reading this, it reminded me of, there was one brother who was in the seminary with me. He didn't, before I tell you the story, he did not last. He was in the seminary for like a year and then he left it. But he was teaching CCD catechesis in the classroom next to me, and the walls weren't super soundproof. But he would go to the students and say, like, remember this is going to be on the test. Remember this is going to be on the test, as if it was all a threat, like, to finish a test. I'm like, I tried to go up to him, try to tell the superiors, try and help him out, because, like, at that point I was 19, 20 years old, and I wasn't like, I didn't have the skills at that point to necessarily help him out exactly how to help him out best. So I told the superiors, and I think they helped him out a little bit to do a little better, because that's not really a great way to aid education, to threaten people that they got to pass the tests. And this is going to be on the test, especially for catechesis, because it's supposed to be something that they love, something they grow to love. And then this catechesis is an age to learning. Like going to catechesis, that helps you learn the faith, helps you learn, understand it, and it hopefully helps you live it. That's going to be a problem that I see sometimes, is we just treat catechesis as if it's social studies, but it's not. It's something that we live in our daily life. Now, yes, certain parts of social studies you live in your daily life, like you take American citizenship and aspects of like American history and what it means to be an American, and social studies, yeah, that you live too. But catechesis even more, so it's that deep relationship. And a lot of social studies you don't. It's like, oh, I know the geography of Africa. I mean, that doesn't really affect my life every day. I can probably name half the countries on a map of Africa, but I'm not sure that would really, that doesn't really affect my life every day. But the fact that Jesus is my Savior, He became man, that affects my life every day. That's something that matters every day. And so there's other means to building up as well, and to building up to learning. And so it mentions media. So a lot of things, this was kind of new at the time, but now we have all kinds of different means for media. You have different, like the Forum series, where you can get the formed video thing, which I know some parishes get for all the people in their parish. You'll have like videos, you'll have saint videos, you'll have instructional things for kids, you have instructional things for adults where there's talks that record and things like that. Then you have developmentally and physically. There's a lot of tools that are that are means that first started in the secular world, but are also helpful. There's what's called the memory palace, or the Loci method, LOCI. I've always seen it written LOCI or memory palace, but how you pronounce LOCI is a question. And the idea is you just have a whole bunch of places to remember things. And so you can go, and with this, you can remember great things. Like I would go into some theology classes with outlines of the class to like 500 subpoints memorized. So, I did very well in those theology classes. And then there's groups in schools. The church runs schools. The church runs groups like CYO, sports, and things like that. And that helps in education because even that, we don't think of it so much as education, but doing sports and learning charity and learning to call to link that prayer, to call your own fouls, not and play charitably and things like that is something we educate in people and we educate in youth. So moving on to paragraph 5, it has 2 subparagraphs. Schools are valuable beyond just learning information and valuing the vocation of educators. So let's read the title here for this paragraph 5 is the importance of schools. But now let's read A. Amongst all educational instruments, the school has a special importance. It is designed not only to develop with special care the intellectual faculties, but also to form the ability to judge rightly, to hand on the cultural legacy of previous generations, to foster a sense of values, to prepare for professional life. Between pupils of different talents and backgrounds, it promotes friendly relations that foster a spirit of mutual understanding and establishes, as it were, a center whose work and progress must be shared together by families, teachers, associations of various types that foster cultural, civic, and religious life, as well as by civil society and the entire human community. This puts that special importance on school because schools, in our modern culture, modern society, is where a large portion of the education comes in. Except for your parents, you probably spend most time at school and in those formative years. I've spent way too much time at school, but if you count higher ed as well. And it's not just intellectual. Also, that idea of building character so that they understand, so that you know the right thing to do. Building values, building professional traits. Nobody wants to hire a dishonest employee. And how well is that formed in the schools? And it should promote cooperation and understanding. How do we cooperate? How do we understand other cultures, other people? I know for myself, I went to the local Catholic school as a kid, and there was a lot of Italians. There was a few recent Hong Kong immigrants, Hong Kongese. I remember we go over to one of the Hong Kongese kids' house and after school sometimes to play video games, play like Street Fighter and things like that. And his grandma lived with him and only spoke Cantonese. And he spoke Cantonese and English, and a few of the other young men from Hong Kong also spoke Cantonese. And that idea, and we collaborate with others. The school collaborates. The school doesn't just say, oh, we're going to do it this way. No, it should collaborate. It should work with parents. It should not be an adversarial relationship, but a mutual beneficial relationship where they're both working together to form the truth in the young person. So now we get to our last point today, 5B, which is valuing the vocation of educators. Beautiful indeed and of great importance is the vocation of all those who aid parents in fulfilling their duties and who, as representatives of the human community, undertake the task of education in schools. This vocation demands special qualities of mind and heart, very careful preparation, and continuing readiness to renew and to adapt. So there is that important vocation of all those who are called to aid parents in education. Obviously, we think of teachers, but it's not just teachers. We also have things like catechists, things like a priest who's working in a school as a chaplain, the coach, the academic assistant, whatever, things like that, right? And so all of those things, and there's a great vocation because they're all entrusted with that valuable thing, with that valuable person, the child, that parent, who is the most valuable possession of most parents, and to help form that person into the best person, to form them in honesty, form them in knowledge, things like that. And obviously, they are still helping the parents. The parents are still the primary educators. And finally, it notes we need to educate these people well. I think Brett talked a lot about the need for Catholic colleges, for Catholic teachers and things like that. But I also wonder sometimes if we could do better in maybe not a full college degree, but a few hours of formation for catechists, because sometimes you have catechists who are not always the best. And that's an important role to teach the faith, and we need to train those people a little more. So thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. I do this podcast on a volunteer basis, and my local religious community relies on donations to help to pay our bills. If you want to support my community, you can go to patreon.com/frmatthewlc. There's also a link to a one-time donation on my own site, frmatthewlc.com. You can also donate to help StarQuest at sqpn.com/give. And I forgot, frmatthewlc.com has a link both to Patreon and to one-time. I use a service called Acceptiva, which is just a credit card processing type service. Tomorrow, we're going to continue on the next paragraphs of Gravissimum Educationes, 6 to 7 on moral education for all. please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which could provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, and Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.